two men have been Siamese twins throughout the race. Now the cord is broken and it looks like Greg LeMond might, but look at the finish by Fignon. They're all turned off. It's going to be close. 27.47 he must do. The clock is counting down. So are the meters to the line. This is going to be incredible. Fignon is bouncing off the barriers here. He's lost the Tour de France. The crowd has realised it. Laurent Fignon has lost the Tour de France. Right on the line as he comes over. 55 seconds is countdown. He has lost the Tour de France by 8 seconds. Can you believe that? Laurent Fignon has lost the Tour and Greg LeMond has won it. And Fignon has fallen over right in the crowd and collapsed on the floor. This is the end of the Tour de France and Fignon is down on the floor in amongst that crowd. We make his defeat 8 seconds. Can you believe it? After over 2,000 miles, we've come down to the last 200 meters of the most incredible sporting event in the world at any time. There is Laurent Fignon in a total state of exhaustion. He's pushed himself over the limit of an athlete today, and he's done it in Paris, and he's lost the Tour.
Welcome back to the Cycling Iceberg Podcast, everyone. The final stage of the 2025 Tour de France takes place today. Also the final episode of the Cycling Iceberg Podcast for this tour, but more on that at the end of the episode. You just heard commentary on the 1989 Tour de France, the mythical time trial battle between Greg LeMond and Laurent Fignon, and that stage marked a turning point regarding the attitude of the final stage. In the early days of the tour, the final stage was just a regular stage. It was a race day like no other. In fact, many times the tour would actually schedule a super long flat stage, making it really demanding, but for different types of riders than those who could gain time in the mountains. This would be a final opportunity for the powerhouses to regain some time. Earlier this tour, I already told you that Jean Robic won the tour by attacking in the final stage, but there's been many more instances. The final stage of the tour was often a time trial, frequently finished on the Parc des Princes or another velodrome, but then finally the tour got permission to finish on the Champs-Élysées and pretty much close off Paris for one day. In the beginning years, still, the Champs-Élysées stage wasn't really a parade. It did become more of a parade, so a mass sprint, not really much expected still. But there was some racing going on. It wasn't the celebratory, oh, we take pictures, we drink champagne. That only came much later. However, the tour organizers did think that they needed to market the final stage better in the 1980s. That's why in 1989 they re-implemented a time trial, this time finishing on the Champs-Élysées. After that time trial they thought it was too rigorous, perhaps because Fignon lost a French rider. But from there on, the parade returned and it became more of a parade. Now, clearly, in the last 2 years, they've taken away from that spectacle. They want a different type of spectacle. Typically, the final stage of the Tour de France gets the most viewership. It's held on a Sunday and also at night. It's the end of the tour, people just tune in. But the racing they see is relatively dull. That's why the Tour is now clearly last year with a time trial, this year with the Montmartre stage, trying to change that. They hope that these viewers who only watch the final stage will see a different type of spectacle. One with racing, one where the big names still take a final dig at each other. That should, hopefully for them, mean that these viewers return the next year, because if they only see a boring sprint stage, they're less likely to be captivated by the sport. But that's enough of a history lesson on the final stage of the Tour de France. Time to move to that legendary tour, the Tour de France of 1989. In my opinion, the greatest Tour de France ever. It started with quite a few contenders for the overall victory. Pedro Delgado from Banesto had a slight advantage over the rest. Perico was the defending champion and had already won the Vuelta in 1989. Be aware that the Vuelta at that point was still held before the Tour de France. Second on the list of favorites was Laurent Fignon from Super U. The professor had won the Tour twice, in 1983 and 1984, but his last win was therefore 5 years behind him. Injuries held him back several seasons, but he seemed to be back at his best in 1989. He won Milan-San Remo and the Giro. Other favourites for the win included 1987 winner Stephen Roach, racing for Fagor now, Charlie Mottet, racing for Aramo, Erik Breukink, a Dutch rider on the Panasonic team, and two other Dutch riders, Steven Rooks and Gert-Jan Teunissen, both on Dutch team PDM. The tour started with an 8-kilometer prologue in Luxembourg. It was Breukink who took the win, finishing 6 seconds ahead of Fignon. Delgado's time was just 18 seconds slower than Breukink's. This would be a very good ride under normal circumstances. The Spaniard was a climber, not a time trialist. However, his time loss equaled 3 minutes because he was late to the start. Delgado had signed the start sheet 20 minutes before departure and then set off for a final warm-up spin. During this, he lost track of time and missed his start slot. No clear explanation was ever given for his lateness. The weirdest rumors went around, mostly as jokes, but the jury, they didn't have any mercy. Late is late, the stopwatch goes as soon as you're supposed to start. Delgado had a horrible start to the Tour. The second day traditionally featured a morning stage and an afternoon team time trial. Acacio da Silva took the yellow jersey by winning the morning stage, but it was Fignon who did best in the afternoon. His team won the team time trial, 30 seconds ahead of second place Panasonic. Most other teams lost about a minute, but Delgado had an absolute stinker. He had attacked in the morning stage, desperate to make up time after the prologue, but therefore he struggled to keep up with his Reynolds Banesto teammates in the team time trial. They lost 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Delgado was second to last in GC, 10 minutes down already. Because of his poor position in the general classification, Delgado had to start early in the 73km time trial of stage 8. This turned out to be an advantage for him actually, as he set the fastest time. While he raced, there was a tailwind, but afterward, the wind turned and it started to rain. Delgado, typically an average time trialist, was now expected to win the stage due to favorable circumstances early on. Delgado would have won the time trial, but then came Greg LeMond, an American racing for ADR. After winning the 1986 Tour, LeMond was the next big thing in cycling. However, the next spring, he was accidentally shot by his brother-in-law while turkey hunting. He had over 60 pellets in his body, and a rescue helicopter being nearby saved him. He underwent emergency surgery, and it obviously took a long time for him to recover to racing. In late 1987, LeMond was finally able to return to racing, but without much success. He made a transfer to PDM, but his 1988 season with that outlook was also bad. He left the team early, despite an ongoing contract, and signed with a tiny ADR team. This new team was facing financial distress, barely paying its staff and riders. It was in fact LeMond himself who rescued the team financially by securing extra sponsors. Racing for this small team, LeMond started to perform better in the 1989 season. Nevertheless, he still wasn't a rider that was considered able of winning the Tour de France. Knowing his form needed to improve, LeMond returned to the US. After doing a bunch of training, he raced the inaugural Tour de Trump. This race had the second largest prize pool in cycling and was seen as a new challenger to the mainstream cycling races. This race could perhaps become a rival of the Tour, but certainly of the Giro and the Vuelta. At home, LeMond didn't perform well. He didn't get the confidence boost he hoped to get in the Tour de Trump, but still, he noticed something useful. The 7-11 team used triathlon handlebars in the final time trial and finished first and second. Drawn by the success, LeMond got triathlon handlebars himself. He started training with them. While some people believed that these tri-bars really helped performance in time trials, many cyclists weren't interested in them. Conventional wisdom held that time trials were required to be ridden with handlebars that were extra wide. This allowed you to keep your chest open and breathe plenty. The Giro itself went quite poorly, but racing on a regular time trial setup, he finished second in the final time trial. In the Tour prologue, LeMond also raced with a regular setup and he finished fourth. The time trial performances were good, giving him a much needed energy boost. Before the time trial of stage 5, LeMond's director, Belgian José de Cauwer, got the triathlon handlebars UCI approved. He told them a small lie, saying LeMond's back was hurting. De Cauwer has told this story many times. He knew that technically the tri-bars were against the regulations. Therefore, he went to the hotel of the UCI commissar super early, knocking on his door, saying, "Oh, LeMond has a back pain, can he please use this?" And the commissar was like, "Well, whatever, just please go away, leave me alone, it's early." The move paid off. LeMond won the time trial despite the headwind and the rain. Fignon finished third, nearly a minute behind. Since ADR had overperformed in the team time trial, This meant Le Mans now took the yellow jersey by 5 seconds on Fillon. 3 other riders also used triathlon handlebars in this stage. Fillon thought the handlebars violated regulations, but didn't file a complaint at this point. While Le Mans' time trial performances were clearly on the up, many still questioned his climbing ability as the race headed towards the Pyrenees. The 9th stage wasn't particularly hard. Delgado attacked on the final climb to Cauterets, regaining just 30 seconds on Fillon and Le Mans. After the stage, Fillon complained. He thought that Le Mans had neglected his duties as the yellow jersey. He thought that the race leader had the responsibility to lead the chase, no matter who went. Le Mans, however, argued it wasn't up to him. I'm already in the race lead. Why do I need to follow Delgado who's 10 minutes down? The tone was set for the 10th stage, which was much harder than the 9th. It featured the Tourmalet, Aspin, Périssoud, before finishing on Super Bagnères. Mottet, 4th in GC at just 4 minutes, attacked early on the Tourmalet. Fillon struggled, allegedly holding on to a motorbike to avoid being dropped. On the Aspin, Fillon continued hanging at the back. And meanwhile at the front, it was Delgado who attacked. He bridged up to Mottet. And by the top of the Périssoud, this trio had a 4:30 lead on the group with Le Mans and Fillon. Mottet was in the virtual GC lead as he started the climb to Super Bagnères. A lot happened on this long climb. Delgado got annoyed by a spectator and decided to throw a bottle in his face. He later dropped Mottet in the final stages of the climb to take the stage win. He retook 3 minutes and 30 seconds on Fillon, who made a much stronger impression than earlier in the stage. Perhaps inspired by Fillon being at the back, Le Mans had attacked a few times early on the climb. Fillon was able to follow and waited for his moment to turn the tables. In the final kilometer, the Frenchman attacked. Le Mans followed, but cracked completely with 600 meters to go. It looked like he completely stalled and parked it right there on the spot. But that was just illusion. As the cameras cut away, it turned out Le Mans managed to repack himself. He managed to limit the damage to 12 seconds. The GC moved much closer together now. Fillon led the GC. He had a 7-second lead over Le Mans. Third place Mottet was 57 seconds down. Delgado at this point had moved up to 4th, now 250 behind the leader. That the Tour can be won every day and lost every day became clear in stage 13. This was supposed to be a simple transition day. A regular stage, Montpellier to Marseille, no real action, breakaway goes for the win, maybe the sprinters, but no, it turned into a GC day. You might be thinking, well, were there echelons because those are 2 coastal cities? No. PDM split the peloton by attacking through the feed zone. Le Mans was called in the second peloton, while Fillon and Mottet were up front. The 2 Frenchmen joined forces and set a super high pace, taking full turns for over an hour. They were only caught when the 2 pelotons behind merged. But it had cost Le Mans a lot of energy. His team was fairly weak, yet needed to do a lot of the chasing himself. Next, 5 difficult stages through the Alps, starting with a 40-kilometer mountain time trial over the Col du Mans to finish up at Orgueil-Malettre. Delgado set the best time among the GC riders. Despite having lost that time early on in the race, he was clearly the strongest climber in the race now. He completed the climb 8 seconds faster than Le Mans. The French, for their part, had a poor showing. Fillon only finished 10th. He lost 47 seconds to Le Mans, who retook the GC lead. Mottet had an even worse outing. He lost 1 minute and 27 seconds, pretty much putting himself out of GC contention. The struggles of these French riders was not a one-time thing. After the rest day, the riders tackled the Col du Vars and Izoard. On the Col du Vars, Fillon and Mottet were dropped. They managed to recover the lost 30 seconds on the descent. On the Izoard, Delgado went on the attack once more. Delgado at this point was closely marked since he was near the top of the general classification. Le Mans and Mottet followed. Mottet now appearing much stronger, especially compared to Fillon, who was dropped just another time. It led to an intriguing battle on the descent to Briançon. Fillon descended fearlessly, almost recklessly, flirting with crashes. According to some papers, it was breathtaking what they saw from the motor. He thought he had completed the comeback when he caught the group with Delgado. What he didn't know was that Le Mans and Mottet had already attacked and gone clear from that group in the downhill. Once Fillon realized his biggest rival for the overall was missing, he took control of the chase. He took even more risks, reaching speeds of nearly 100 kilometers per hour according to some Dutch newspapers. He nearly caught Le Monde, but then the final kilometer went uphill again. On this steep section, a classic finish at the time, Le Monde gained 13 seconds, extending his GC lead to 53 seconds. It appeared the American had the momentum on his side now. Things turned around in the Queen stage the next day. The Galibier and Croix de Fer didn't cause much damage, but it built fatigue for the final climb to Alpe d'Huez. Here, Fillon attacked immediately, right in the first hairpin. And while Le Monde followed, Fillon's directeur sportif, Cyril Guimard, noticed Le Monde wasn't at his best. Guimard urged Fillon to attack again. The professor was hesitant, not fully trusting his director. He waited long, until 4 kilometers to go. When he went all out there, Le Monde had no reaction whatsoever. He quickly saw Fillon disappear up the road. In fact, Delgado came back, dropped way before passing Le Monde. The time loss was severe, potentially decisive for Le Monde. He finished 1 minute 19 down. He was now 26 seconds behind in the general classification. Fillon immediately said he regretted attacking so late. Had he gone earlier, he could have perhaps taken 2 minutes, blown out a decisive punch. At just 90 kilometers, stage 18 provided fireworks. It was an explosive stage. Fillon attacked with 25 kilometers to go on the Côte de Saint-Nizaire. Le Monde had to respond, but he couldn't follow. Fillon was now clearly the strongest climber 2 days in a row. Le Monde reached the top 15 seconds after yellow jersey Laurent Fillon. The gap grew during the descent and valley to Villard-de-Lans, as the chasing group didn't cooperate at all. They left the work to Le Monde, and by the start of the third category climb to the finish, Fillon had a 45-second lead. Things could have been over for Le Monde here, but then on the final climb, PDM and Banesto made the curious decision to help him out. They hoped to win the stage, but it was quite late to do so. The final climb wasn't that long or steep, and 45 seconds was clearly too much to close. Earlier they hadn't seemed willing to help Le Monde chase Fillon in the hope that they could still pass him in the GC themselves, so it was unclear why they did it. But it certainly helped Le Monde. He didn't complain at all. In the end, Fillon took the stage win by 24 seconds. The Frenchman now felt good about his GC lead, which sat at 50 seconds. This should be enough for the final 24-kilometer time trial. He could lose roughly 2 seconds per kilometer. Surely that should be enough. But before that time trial, the final mountain stage awaited. The stage to Aix-les-Bains featured 3 climbs, but all in the middle of the stage, far from the finish. With 80 kilometers to go, an elite breakaway formed. Fillon, Le Monde, Delgado, Teunissen, and Marino Learreta of Patinera. Le Monde attacked repeatedly on the final climb, but couldn't drop Fillon. The entire break later crashed when they misjudged the roundabout in Chambry, but it had no consequences. Le Monde won the stage in a sprint. The GC gap remained at 50 seconds. Stage 20 took the riders towards Paris, and it turned into a day of light-hearted joking. It seemed like the tour was over. This was the typical shenanigans of the final stage, the final real stage. Fillon swapped his yellow jersey with Teun van Vliet, who imitated him. Riders briefly raced on regular bikes, each other's bikes, or even rode the TV motorbikes. Afterwards, the riders took the train to Paris. Fillon, awaited by a herd of journalists when he arrived, acted aggressively. For unknown reasons, he spat on a TV camera and threatened to punch a journalist. Despite appearances and lingering saddle sores, Fillon remained confident ahead of the final time trial. He thought the Tour win was locked up. The papers agreed. The consensus was that the Frenchman would win. Dutch newspaper NRC wrote, 2 seconds per kilometer should be possible with the triathlon handlebars, but who can guarantee us that Fillon won't be blown ahead by cars and motorcycles? NRC was one of the only newspapers to have some belief in Le Monde. Other papers, especially the French ones, were certain that the time trial wasn't more than just a formality. Then came the final time trial. Le Monde raced with aero handlebars, a time trial helmet, and a rear disc wheel. He started fast. He knew he would have to deliver a career performance to win the Tour. Getting in Fillon's head by starting fast was part of his plan. This was the oldest trick in the book. Everyone knew If you needed to pull off a miracle in the final time trial, you start out fast, hope you don't blow up, and then hope that your rival starts hearing the time gaps and starts freaking out. The first part of the course was downhill, with a tailwind. The speeds were phenomenally high. By the 12-kilometer mark, Le Mans had gained 21 seconds already on Fignon. Nevertheless, the Frenchman was riding extraordinarily well for his standards. The course then went along the Seine, with the Eiffel Tower in picture. Le Mans kept increasing his lead. With no GPS gaps, commentators relied on their stopwatches, making them work overtime at recognizable spots. Pedestrian crossings, spectators with funky hats, everything was used to get an indication of the gap, who was going to win the Tour. Occasionally, time gaps were shown. With 4 kilometers to go, Le Mans was 32 seconds up on Fignon. He needed 18 more seconds to win the Tour. That would be a big ask in the final part. The American dug deep. He went all out as he took the final turn in front of the Arc de Triomphe. He sprinted to the line, pushing out the last bit of energy he had. He finished with an average speed of 54.5 kilometers an hour, which is still the fastest Tour time trial ever. All he could do was wait for Fignon to come in. The finish looked like it would be extremely close. Commentators clocked the virtual GC gap at 2 seconds in favor of Fignon as he went under the Flamme Rouge. The Frenchman was delivering a great performance, on course for third in the time trial. He too gave it everything on the final straight. The Arc de Triomphe in the background, but the seconds passed, the stopwatch kept ticking. Fignon collapsed to the ground after the finish, not knowing the outcome. He asked people around him, "Have I won the Tour?" But nobody dared to say anything. Finally, one man spoke up. "You've lost, Laurent." It was Le Mans who won his second Tour by 8 seconds, still the smallest margin in history. The victory of Le Mans became one of the greatest comebacks across all sports. From hunting accident, near death, to winning the Tour, he was truly back at his best. Later that year, he became world champion. He then proceeded to sign a 3-year deal with Zed Tomaso, worth $5.5 million. It was the biggest contract in cycling history at the time. He went on to win the Tour again in 1990. For Fignon, the loss was devastating. Losing the Tour, which he thought he had locked up, with such a small margin despite delivering a great performance, was hard for him to deal with. Later he said, "I knew it was going to be difficult. In the beginning I still got time gaps from the team car, but once they stopped coming, I knew I was in trouble. I decided to give it my everything, but it wasn't enough." There are more things to the dramaticness of this final stage. On the podium, Le Mans placed his hand on the back of Fignon, whispering something into his ear. We now know that was, "Now we both have 2 Tour de France wins." Fignon later said on that podium all he wanted to do was disappear. He was happy he lived in Paris, so he could disappear into the darkness of the night, wanting to forget about this loss as quickly as possible. He never came close to winning the Tour after this, and that made it extra hard for him. It led to much ridicule. His career remained haunted by his defeat. His legacy was the man who lost the Tour by 8 seconds, rather than the man who'd won the race twice, taking down Bernard Hinault even. That was the story of the 1989 Tour de France. As said, I think the greatest tour ever. It had a lot of great battles for stage wins as well. You can watch it almost entirely on YouTube. I will put some links in the show notes. A really, really spectacular outing. Great duel, back and forth, momentum switches, Anglophone press taking on the French press. Just really a fantastic outing. And of course, there have been many other great Tour de France's, but this one, for me, top of the list. That will be it then from the Cycling Iceberg podcast for this Tour de France. I already recorded the last 3 episodes from vacation, and I will be enjoying that until I get back. Then the podcast will return with 2 or 3 episodes a week as we approach the Vuelta. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the support, everyone. Enjoy. Goodbye.